Okay, what we're going to do now is talk about shelters, and shelters in the sense of a survival situation, the basic essentials that you need. Shelter is always at the top of the list. It doesn't take long to die from hypothermia, and that's the thing that shelters can prevent. As long as you build them before you're hypothermic, that's the key. One of the classic ones is the lean-to, and this one's seen its day. It's pretty much on its way out, but the basic structure here would be the same, and that is a ridge board going across between two trees and then branches on top of there to hold whatever you have, natural vegetation, whether that be leaves and grasses or pine boughs, whatever you got, or in the case of here where we've got sort of a combination and a tarp or a piece of plastic, then you just saved yourself a lot of work if you have that available to you. The only thing I'd warn you about is you got to watch, this one's on the verge of being a little too flat, especially if we were using natural vegetation on this. You'd want it maybe a little steeper pitched just to shed the water. Now if you got a tarp on there, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, that's going to keep the water out. But if I was using natural vegetation, this would be up at a little higher pitch than what you see here. But this could all be made with natural vegetation and resources. The other thing too here is you really don't even need rope to build this. A lot of manuals will show this ridge board tied up to a tree, but you can see here with just a little creativity, you get a fork stick, put it in an angle and push it against both trees. And again, there's no rope or anything. You get the weight of this on here and it holds it in place. A lean-to is designed to basically keep you dry. Okay, it's not a shelter you'd want to build in the dead of winter or if it's really cold and you don't have a sleeping bag. It's not going to hold your body heat per se. Certainly it'll cut the wind chill. Put a lot of grass on the, dried grass leaves on the floor here, build that up, get it real lofty. It can be real comfortable, but without a external fire, okay, you can still freeze to death in these things. So they're not the greatest because of their size for holding body heat, but keeping you dry, okay? Obviously, if you're going to build something out of natural dead material that's dry, you want to be careful with fire. And when I talk about a fire pit, we're talking about a very small fire, okay, that's primarily designed to radiate heat back into you sitting underneath here. So they have to be kind of close in order to do that. But again, this is kind of a rough design, some of the rocks available in this area and how that's accomplished. And as a general rule, if you had a fire in here, you really don't want the flames coming up over your reflector wall. Okay, so we're talking a real small fire, and once those rocks are heated up, I mean, you can feel it back in there. But the nice thing here, if the weather's bad, you can sit under the edge here when this thing is completed and be real close to the fire and use that for not only warmth but for cooking, boiling water if you have to, and whatever else you need to make yourself comfortable. So classic lean-to. Lots of modifications you can make. You can add sides to it if you want to kind of cut down the wind chill a little bit. But again, a real easy and quick shelter to build, and most people kind of get this concept. Okay, with that in mind, there is a shelter that will hold your body heat. Okay, and we're going to talk about that one next. Okay, this next type of shelter we're going to talk about is one that can actually hold your body heat, which is, again, essential to preventing hypothermia. It's sometimes referred to as a leaf hut or debris hut, and that's simply in reference to the material that it's made from, which is usually leaves, fallen debris. If you're in a pine forest or spruce forest, you can also make these out of pine boughs and spruce boughs. But anyhow, this is the basic framework. What you want to start with, and again, this is all dead material, so you don't really have to take out anything living, and it's just stuff you pick up off the ground. But you want to start with a ridge pole that runs the whole length, and that's generally going to be as long as the person who builds it, a little longer, so that when you lay down with your head against this prop stick here, that ridge pole go right over the top of your toes. Okay, so it's custom made for the individual. At that point, while you're laying there, you kind of put your hands out, and where your elbows hit, that's going to be the widest point, which you see right in this area here on both sides. And then from there, it just tapers to the back, very much like a mummy sleeping bag. Okay, And then, of course, this would all be filled in right in here with sticks. And one thing too, see a lot of people that pick up sticks, they'll start at the bottom and they'll start breaking sticks to, work their way up. Whatever stick you find, whatever size it is, find where that length matches, and throw it on there. Okay, that way you save a lot of calories from having to break sticks, and you really shouldn't break sticks over your knees. That's an accident waiting to happen. So wherever the stick fits, put it in there, cover the whole thing. Up here, the only thing you want to leave open is an opening for a door. And once that's done, to the point to where when I throw debris on here, it's not going to fall through, then you're ready to move to the next step, which we'll show you here next. Once you have that framework done, the next step is to collect debris and throw on the top. And this is an example, one that's been here for about 6 months. Okay, this is not a usable debris hut. These are short term. You would not want to crawl into this. These are infested with mice and insects and raccoons and everything else. So these are just short term survival shelters. And the other thing too is they start to decompose. And once that happens, you lose the main purpose of these, and that is creating loft with leaves. That dead air space is what acts as an excellent insulator, and that's where it retains your heat. So again, these are short-term type survival things, but you get the basic idea. This one was a combination of leaves and grass both that were put on here, and when this thing was first made, we had temperatures down around 20 degrees at night, so we were looking at about 2 foot of debris on top of this at the peak. Okay, obviously toward the bottom it's going to be a little thicker to maintain that that shape, but 2 foot's a good minimum for when you get down in temperatures 20 degrees and below. Okay, so it has settled considerably, but one of the biggest problems people have is they go to do a really good job of building that part. When it comes to building the door, it's usually way too big, and it's usually not insulated as thick as the rest of the debris hut is. So obviously your weak link is the door, and where's your heat go? Runs right out the door. So this may look small, but this is actually a pretty large door. And again, that's the major problem when you first build these things, is you got to really think small. You crawl in here with your feet, and again, so you need something about the width of your shoulders. Whatever that is, that's the biggest your door should be. The other thing is that this is way too high. There should be a little roof coming out here, and this should all be covered in debris here for the door, so that you're crawling in something about this size here. Again, if you do that, do it properly, this will hold your body heat and keep you warm without a sleeping bag, and that's the beauty of these things. That's what they're designed for. Okay, I wouldn't say they're comfortable. If you're claustrophobic, you're gonna have a really hard time with this, because it is like crawling into a sleeping bag. There's no room in there. You basically lay on your back like this. You don't pull your knees up or roll around or things like that. If you can do all that, if you can sit up in it and roll around, pull your knees up, it's too big. It's too big for your body to heat. But the only other component is, and this is something that's done usually when it's in the framework stage, it's just easier, is to stuff the entire inside. As you're collecting debris, try to find the driest stuff that you can. Usually that's stuff on the top, okay, that hasn't had, or that's had a chance to dry out from the wind, or if it's been raining, it might be stuff closer to the bottom. But the driest stuff you want to hold and stuff on the inside here, and then once the entire thing is full on the inside, you wiggle in there and you mat it all down, and that's your sleeping pad. Okay, that's what's going to insulate you from the ground. If it's really cold out, you'd want to fill that again a second time, and this time when you crawl in for the night, when this thing is finished, you burrow into that so that you're surrounded by the leaves in addition to the structure itself. So again, for real cold temperatures, you need to do that. The big thing to remember here, this is designed for if you're lost and need shelter and don't have a sleeping bag, a warm coat, or anything like that. This is the only shelter out there that's going to, short of having a fire, of course, that's going to hold your body heat if you do it right. So if done correctly, this works really well. Takes a while to build, and the other limitations on this is you need debris. So as we get into late winter, early spring, when stuff starts to decompose, it's a little tougher to find, but this is an ideal shelter for the fall season, you know, when it's cold. Prior to that, again, you're probably better off sticking with a lean-to shelter. It's a lot quicker to build, and you know, if you're not worried about freezing to death, it's a lot more comfortable. But again, that's real quick basics on a debris hut.